Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes with the Waltons. Today, I want to do a special segment to wish a very happy birthday to Mary McDonough. Mary was born in LA and born and raised there. And as a young girl, she took a lot of dance lessons and things like that. So she was already very athletic and very coordinated. Now, she didn't get into acting till she was 10, and the homecoming was her very first audition. So beginner's luck, and what a way to launch a career. So, of course, she was cast as the adorable Erin Walton. And then, of course, when it became a series, her career was well and truly launched. This is what Earl Hamner had to say about casting Mary in his book, Goodnight, John Boy. He said, Mary McDonough was to play the middle child, a role based on my sister Audrey. The middle child is said to be the easygoing child, the patient one who doesn't rock the boat. Audrey was easygoing, but she rocked the boat when she had to. It wasn't easy being the middle child in that pack of brothers and sisters. Mary McDonough played Audrey perfectly. Mary was born May 4th, 1961, and with her blue eyes, red hair, and freckles, she did not need makeup to have the Walton look. She and Audrey became good friends. So obviously Earl was very smitten with Mary and thought she would be absolutely perfect to play his sister Audrey. What I remember about Erin in The Homecoming was that she's, from my perspective as Mary Ellen, she was kind of bratty and prissy and very easy to tease. You know, she took things very personally. She was very sensitive. So I had that opportunity as Mary Ellen to really pick on her and tell her to turn blue and things like that and call her names. But in real life, I'm not proud to say that at 13 to her 10, I was going through a cocky phase, which helped me get the character of Mary Ellen, helped get me cast because that was kind of how Mary Ellen was. But I was also rather full of myself and convinced that I was right about practically everything, in regards to my opinions. And sometimes I feel like I was overly forceful and a little too hard on Mary because she was easy to pick on and easy to tease. And I feel bad about that. Fortunately, as the years went by, that 3-year age difference became just invisible. All of a sudden, the difference between 10 and 13 and 18 and 21 or, 24 and 27 is nothing. So it didn't matter anymore. And she became my best friend, my confidant, and the person that I most relied on in many cases to give me advice and to support me emotionally when I needed it. And she was really always there for me, and I've always appreciated that. We did a lot of things together away from the set. We attended events, we just for fun. We, have dinner, lunch, events. I mentioned we went on a cruise together between seasons. One year during our show hiatus, and she and I said, let's do something, and spontaneously booked a cruise and had a great time together. It was pretty perfect and worked out well. We found we were really good roommates and travel companions. And then there were times when we were each doing shows, doing theater. And I remember going to Texas to see her doing a show. She came to Pittsburgh when I did my very first big musical, when I did Cinderella for the Pittsburgh Civic Light Opera. She came out to see me there and support me there. So we've really tried to be there and support each other at a lot of those important moments in our lives, and just for fun, because that's what sisters do. We attended each other's weddings. She was actually a bridesmaid for my first marriage. So we've been there through a lot of significant events in our lives and supported each other through the hard times. She was the person I would call at times when I was very upset and didn't quite know what to do and needed some sort of support. And she was the first person I would often think of. And she would, I'd call her and go, I need you to come over. And she would. she's that kind of a person and that kind of a friend. And I'm eternally grateful to have her in my life. On the Waltons, there's so many standout episodes for the character of Erin, or for me, for Mary. Early on in The Boy from the CCC, Mary actually had some comments about that, which I found kind of fun. She said, sometimes when you act with someone on a series, you work together in an episode and then you never see that person again. When we filmed this episode, I had a crush on Michael Rupert, who played the boy from the CCC. Years later, I was with a bunch of actors in New York. I was one of those actors. And we went backstage to see Michael, who was starring in Pippin. Years passed, but my heart still skipped a beat. So I remember that. I remember seeing Michael on stage a couple times, seeing him in Pippin and also seeing him, I believe I saw him in a production of City of Angels. And I mean, he's a wonderful actor, but he's also a wonderful singer. So doing musicals just fit him to a T. Also in season 1, a standout for me was the Dust Bowl cousins, because I loved how Erin stood up to Uncle Ham. He stole from Godsy's store, and Erin saw him, and she was uncertain what to do, and she tried to get advice, and I think from John Boy, and John Boy said, just handle it, take care of it, Erin. What do you think you should do? I don't want to, I don't want you tattling. And so she, as a young girl, had to get the courage up to confront Uncle Ham and let him know she saw what he did and that it wasn't right, and stand by her principles. And he did. He dismissed her and, kind of threatened her almost, but she stuck to her guns and did the right thing. So I loved that for the character and the show, and for Mary. In the spoilers, she had to deal with one of the city boys, the son of the family, who was making passes at her, and she was maybe interested in him, but she wasn't comfortable with the passes and and the amount of touchy-feely that he wanted to be engaged in that she wasn't comfortable with. And again, she had to sort of find a way to not compromise her own principles on that. So over the years, Mary has even talked about how Erin did a lot of kissing and crying, but I realized that she had a lot of very challenging sort of encounters with boys that she had to deal with over the seasons. In the competition, we took sort of a step forward where now she was a little bit more mature, and all of a sudden she is in competition with Mary Ellen, who also is interested in Chad. Erin won that one. And in fact, it was serious enough that Chad came back in a subsequent episode and wanted her to elope with him. Although, ultimately, again, Erin stood her ground and said, I'm not ready for this, and chose not to run away and without her parents' approval and blessing. And so a very courageous moment for Erin. So I love that throughout the relationships that we saw, and as much as Mary laughs about the kissing and crying, she had a lot of important scenes that I think were good as a role model for young girls to not get sort of pushed and persuaded into things you're not comfortable with. Then in the Burnout, Erin was always considered the pretty one. And in the Burnout, she is experiencing that and being sort of vain. And then when she feels she is potentially responsible for John Boy, certainly for him, his book being burned because he was back getting her because she was worried about her dress, she goes through a period where she feels like she needs to shun the vanity and change that. So she kind of swings the pendulum too far the other way and dresses dowdy and just overly meek. And she kind of had to find her way back to who the real Erin was, that it was okay to be pretty, but to not let that identify who you are, and that she was more than just pretty, that is superficial, and that she really began to build more internal character, which is very much the case with Mary. She's an absolutely beautiful person inside and out. She's always been physically beautiful, but she did so much work herself in developing who she is as a person that she really, you see beyond the surface beauty to someone very worthwhile underneath. Some fun stuff for Erin in the firestorm, with as intense as a story it was about the whole Nazi movement and John Boy wanting to print excerpts from Mein Kampf and the book burning and everything. She had a whole storyline about engaging in a beauty pageant, and her parents are like, no way. And Grandpa actually comes to the rescue and makes a suggestion of the girls doing the swimsuit part of the competition, wearing old-fashioned swimsuits. And so that passes the approval of Mama and Daddy. In The Career Girl, as she graduates and then recognizes that she has no idea what she wants to do with her life. John Boy knew he wanted to be a writer. Jason knew he wanted to study music. Mary Ellen knew she wanted to be a nurse. And she finds herself thinking, I don't know what I want to do. And in that search, finds herself ultimately working in an office and learning those sort of skills, and makes a very unselfish decision to work there to earn a typewriter to help John Boy with his book and being able to submit that. So a really very grown-up moment for Erin. Unfortunately, in The First Casualty, she encounters one of those really, really difficult life lessons when GW dies in a training accident after joining the Army, and she feels so responsible because she feels like he joined the Army because she said no to his marriage proposal. So she is very conflicted about all of that and has some absolutely heartbreaking moments in dealing with that. And Mary did just stunning work in that episode, and she has talked about how she felt that that was one of the first opportunities she had to do really grown-up acting, mature acting work, and that she had been studying because she wanted to improve her craft as an actress, and I really applaud that. Fun moments in The Empty Nest when Mary Ellen and Erin decide to move to the city and get an apartment together. And once again, she has an unwanted suitor, and in this case, Mary Ellen has no problem just sending him on his way. But we often talked about how fun it would have been if Mary Ellen and Erin had a spin-off series later on about them living together in the city or something like that. That would have been fun. What do you think? As Erin continued her pursuit as a career woman, and went and took on more and more responsibility working for JD and taking over, sort of running the plant for him. And then she really was instrumental in a lot of important things that happened there. She helped Verdi's daughter get a job there as a woman of color, and that real stride forward. She pushed JD into important social decisions, and with the children, when she was backing Olivia about wanting to start a children's daycare, finding a place for these children of the women who were working there so that they could be safe. So she did a lot of things like that, and really made a difference. Of course, her love stories continued to happen, and the legacy, meeting Ashley Longworth Jr., was a pivotal moment in her life. And another rather heartbreaking one, because ultimately that romance did not work out for either of them. But I know for Mary, she also really enjoyed having a chance to meet and work with Jonathan Frakes. And that was a friendship that has continued over the years. And then I can't not speak about The Wager, because that show was written and developed because of my involvement with horses and riding and jumping. And so our writers created that for me. And poor Mary got volunteered to be my partner there. And she was such a sport, so game about that, and so courageous, because she's although she's ridden horses, she's allergic to them. She doesn't really ride. But she was just right in there and did everything that was asked of her. And so again, I applaud her courage. And she never whined and complained at all. She just did it. And it was just testament to how athletic she is, as well as being a beauty. Post-Waltons, Mary went on to become a writer as well as continuing to act. And she became a writer and a director and also a producer. She wrote and directed a short film, For the Love of May, which I believe is available to be seen in some places. Check her website. You might be able to find that, or her Facebook page. She did guest spots on TV shows like The New Adventures of Old Christine, West Wing, Ally McBeal, ER, Will and Grace, Boston Legal, just to name a few. And in recent years, she's done a couple of successful Hallmark movies, Holiday Touchdown, A Chief's Love Story, and A Biltmore Christmas, which reunited her with Jonathan Frakes. Plus, having had one of her books, Christmas on Honeysuckle Lane, turned into a Hallmark movie in which she also did a role. And she's written several fiction books as well as her own sort of autobiography, Lessons from the Mountain, What I Learned from Erin Walton. She is an advocate, a mother, a grandmother, and just a wonderful person all around. And we still get to do various events together, and we get to hang out together away from some of those events as well. So she is someone who I am just so grateful to have had in my life all these years. So it is with great joy that I help celebrate her on her birthday. You can check out what she's doing she's on Facebook. She's probably on Instagram, and she has her website, marymcdonough.com. She also is a life coach, an acting coach, and a motivational speaker. So just so talented, so talented. So happy birthday, Sister Mary. And I look forward to spending more time together soon. I love you so much. Thank you for joining me to help celebrate Mary on her birthday. I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons, more of your questions with Ask Judy, and coming up, some conversations with Leslie Winston. So that'll be fun. I will see you then. Thanks for watching.